If your renewable energy or other low-carbon project involves a listed building, a conservation area, or a protected landscape, applying for planning permission can be more complex and certainly more time-consuming. Your planning department will have particular rules concerning developments in heritage settings and will be looking carefully at your proposal to assess its impact. In some cases, they'll grant planning permission, but with conditions attached to make the development less conspicuous, for example.
In other cases, they may refuse planning permission altogether, on the grounds that the proposed development is not appropriate in a heritage setting. It may be out of scale with the landscape, for example, or not in keeping with the historical context of a building. Or it could be that it diminishes an area's sense of tranquility and remoteness. These kinds of issues are difficult to judge. A planning officer or local authority may be content to allow solar panels on a Victorian church roof, or a wind turbine on a remote hillside, for example. So, if you're considering a renewable energy development within an area where there are listed buildings, or where a landscape's character is likely to be a factor in the planning application, consult with your local authority at the earliest opportunity. They will explain to you what are likely to be the key issues and what information they're going to require so they can support the application and assist in their determination of the proposal. And be aware that you may need any or all of these permissions for monitoring equipment. For example, if you want a large wind turbine, your first planning application may actually need to be for the wind speed monitoring mast, not the turbine itself.
Even if you don't need planning permission for your renewable energy installation, if the building or buildings involved are of historic interest, you may still need listed buildings consent or conservation area consent. Without them, you can't proceed. There are three main questions that the planning department will be trying to answer. Firstly, will your proposal result in the loss of the building's special interest? Why exactly is this building listed? And is that undermined by the proposed development? Say a building is listed because a famous person once lived there. Does the installation of solar panels to the roof affect this listing? Secondly, can you make the installation without damage to the historic fabric? And could it also be removed without damage? And thirdly, can you demonstrate that you have done everything reasonably expected to make the building more energy efficient before installing the renewables?
It is important to remember that old buildings perform differently from modern ones. Many historic buildings are made from materials that allow moisture to escape. If these buildings are insulated with modern materials, the warmth will be trapped inside, but so will the moisture, leading to a risk of damp and decay. In the most sensitive cases, the listed buildings officer may assert that your building cannot be altered because the changes would be irreversible without causing damage, or that the building is of such historic quality that it should not be altered at all.
Some renewable technologies, such as large-scale wind, biomass and hydro, will be highly visible in the landscape. It's therefore useful to consider the landscape impact of your proposed project early in the process and to ask the local authority landscape officer to meet you on site to discuss the issues. If you're in a national park or area of outstanding natural beauty, this will be a vital step. In order to assess whether your proposed installation would have a detrimental impact on the landscape, a study called a landscape sensitivity analysis may be required. This is reasonably complex stuff that needs to be carried out by a qualified landscape architect, whose assessment will consider various elements of the landscape, such as the following.
In big landscapes, like the Scottish Highlands or Lincolnshire Fens, distance and scale are hard to perceive, making these landscapes less sensitive to large installations, like the biggest wind turbines, which can be 80 metres or more to the hub. Smaller wind turbines at 30 or 50 metres tall might be more acceptable in landscapes with smaller, more rolling features. Simple landforms, characterised by prairie-type field patterns and areas of forest, are considered capable of absorbing installations like wind turbines. Complex landforms, characterised by a patchwork of small-scale features, such as farms, hedgerows, small copses and hamlets, are often considered more sensitive. If the development can't be seen from many other places, for example, because of hills and woodlands, then larger scale installations will have less impact and planning permission will be more likely to be granted. How remote and tranquil is the landscape? If you can already see significant large structures such as communications masts, motorways or large towns, then the sensitivity of the landscape to an additional large structure is reduced. Though there is also something called cumulative impact, which can be summarised as this landscape contains lots of large structures already and cannot accommodate any more. So as you can see, it's never clear-cut.
All of these issues will be dependent on the exact site, but they act as a useful guide for your consideration. Visit your site and try to think about these elements of the landscape objectively before you meet planning officers on site. This will show them that you've thought about these issues and will give you a common vocabulary for discussion. It will also reveal to you the likely objections that local people may raise and give you time to reflect on whether you can objectively address these concerns. Good luck.